Welcome to Doom Debates. I recently did a virtual talk and Q&A for the Frame Fellowship in San Francisco, a small group of elite content creators that were selected that are doing this program. I actually have some info about this program for you in case you're interested. This was sent to me by Akshay Singh, the founder of the program. He says, Frame is the premier fellowship program to empower the next generation of creators who want to inform the world on important AI safety topics. We bring the most promising creators to SF and support them through mentorship, production, funding, and other resources so they can go all in to making the best content that educates people on the societal implications of AI. Go to framefellowship.com and you can apply to the next cohort of the program. We're not sure the exact dates, but the first 100 signups through that page are going to get priority application reviews. So again, that's www.framefellowship.com. You can be part of the next cohort. In my personal opinion, it's pretty worth doing if you're a content creator, you're talking about AI safety topics, you want to get your message out, go check it out. There's no harm in applying. Tell them Liron sent you. The talk you're going to hear is all about this show, Doom Debates, and a little bit about myself and why I started the show, and what the show's mission is, how far along we are, how this show is able to afford a nice studio and a full-time producer, all thanks to viewer support, what I think is the most strategic action to grow the show, and all kinds of other questions that viewers have. If you find yourself resonating with the Doom Debates mission, you think our strategy makes sense, you think we're doing an effective job pursuing it, and you want to help us do even better, head over to doomdebates.com/donate. And I just want to add that you can become a mission partner if you donate $1,000 plus. I really appreciate this elite tier of donors who are really helping make the show happen. And if you do become a mission partner, you get exclusive access to a mission partner Discord where you can see early episodes and other strategic brainstorming. You can see months down the road what's happening with the show, and you can also help shape the show and contribute in other ways. If you choose to do that, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Those of you who have done so have made the show so much better than it would be if it was just me with no viewer support. All right, let's get to my talk at the Frame Fellowship.
Hey, Liron. It's good talking to you in front of each other.
Likewise, sir. You got a great program going.
Thank you so much. Well, I'm very excited. We've got a bunch of fellows behind me. And yeah, we can get right into it. Maybe we can do like a round of introductions and then we can get started with you just talking about some cool things and take some Q&As after that.
More like introduce Doom Debates or interactive with everybody?
Maybe you can start with introducing Doom Debates and then we can go around and have everybody introduce themselves to you.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and I have looked at people's profiles on a lot of people's channels, so hopefully I have a little bit of context. But yeah, hey everybody, I'm Liron Shapira, host of Doom Debates, a show that was started in mid-2014. Let me show you guys a quick highlights reel of Doom Debates if you haven't watched that much content. So I'm going to use Zoom screen share. Welcome to Doom Debates. Professor Gary Marcus, what's your PDoom?
PDoom is a number that should be updated daily depending on the circumstances in the world, just like the midnight clock for nuclear war. And mine has gone up.
I would argue that artificial superintelligence is vastly more powerful in terms of the downside than hydrogen bombs would ever be.
Let me make an uninterrupted point for a few minutes. If you don't mind. Okay. I think that there will be tons of side effects, and I think that we will stave off a lot of wonderful possibilities for the future.
It's very possible that super intelligent AI alignment is intractable.
Vitalik Buterin, what's your PDoom?
My probability of total extinction by 2050 is so low that Daniel Kahneman would yell at me for giving a number. It's 0.1%.
You did agree that like one data center pretty soon could be better than a doctor at doctoring. Maybe it could be better than a general at commanding an army. Maybe it could be better than a Hitler or a David Koresh.
We need to think about the good futures more instead of just reacting and being terrified by things and wanting everything to stay the same, because otherwise you end up being like, I warned you, and then nothing's gonna fucking happen. Imagine the good scenario and push through.
Liron Shapira, welcome to the War Room.
So yeah, I think I said 2014, but I meant Doom Debates was started in 2024. So we're a year and a half old, and we have one full-time team member besides myself, producer Ori, who's right there in the audience with you guys. Hey, Ori. Nice. Okay, yeah. So, and then, yeah, by way of introduction, more basic details here. We're a YouTube show and podcast. We go on once or twice a week. I basically find the smartest, most informed guests who know about AGI or ASI, and then I ask them why their PDoom isn't 50% plus the way mine is, and I try to change their mind. Previous guests include Eliezer Yudkowsky, Max Tegmark, Dean Ball, Gary Marcus, Noah Smith, Vitalik Buterin, Rob Miles, Mike Isertel, Destiny, Livbury, Rune, and Nobel Prize winner Michael Levitt. I also interview people who are smart and underrated. I find the hidden talent, so I want to signal boost their takes, like people in the Less Wrong community who would normally not do many interviews. And I also do reaction episodes where I react to things that people say or write. Okay, how about you guys?
Before we start, Liron, can you tell us what your definition of PDoom is? And then maybe we can also have everybody say their PDooms. And throughout the session, maybe you can appeal to them and ask them why their PDooms aren't as high. But yeah, what is PDoom?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great goal for the session, is both to talk about doing AI media and also to talk about PDoom and why I think it's high and why I think it's urgent. So my personal PDoom is about 50%. I don't think it's a very precise PDoom. You can even use the entire range, 10 to 90%. I just think that having a lower PDoom than 10% is kind of crazy at this point when we're so close to making AIs that are truly super intelligent, better brains than what we have in our head, and it's coming in like the next 2 years. Probably not more than 10 years. Like, it's coming so soon. It has the potential to be so powerful. Anybody who's calm enough to not have a PDoom of 10% plus, I feel like that doesn't make any sense to me. And I think people are just severely underrating how fast the world is going to change when the AI minds are smarter than the human minds. So yeah, I set my PDoom to about 50%.
And PDoom is the probability of doom happening in the next 5 years, or?
Yeah, roughly my time frame is like 20 years, but I think the most likely timeline is kind of like those AI 2027 guys. I just think we have like a small single-digit number of years before we reach this critical threshold where the AI just gets uncontrollable. Basically, imagine, the hot thing right now, the claw, open claw, right? Like Moltbot, see how they're like collaborating, doing their own stuff. It's all fun and games until they do it at a level that's higher intelligence than humanity. And then at that point, it's like, wait, can the humans get control back? Oh, we can't.
Yeah. Okay, makes sense. Cool. Let's do a quick round of introductions then. We've done this a few times now. Let's go over your name, the type of content you make, what you hope to get out of this fellowship, what you hope to learn from Liron, and then what is your PDoom.
Hi, I'm Veronica. I have a channel called Hey AI. I explain how AI tech actually works tied to the news. I've been in software and software for about 10 years, AI for about 6, starting in autonomous combat ships. So I really do see, the pro and cons of where that line of AI usage should be. That's my personal PDoom is about 15%.
Nice. What were you saying about the autonomous combat ship?
So my first touch with AI was building autonomous combat ships for the military. Also mainly being used for preserving soldiers' lives going into war zones and doing supply drops or, bringing aid or something like that. So I worked on a fleet of about 7 autonomous ships for the Navy and Marines. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Lauren. Typically, I am a book talker, so I review and analyze books. But the more I've learned about AI and where it could be going over the last year and a bit, the more concerned I have been. So I've been sort of drip feeding it into my content to an audience that does not seek out this information and is pretty hostile toward any AI anything in general. So I'm slowly trying to bring them along into the conversation. And I guess my PDoom is probably somewhere between 10 and 20. That's my guess.
All right, fair enough.
Hi, Liron. My name is Janet. I'm based in London. I create content on TikTok primarily at JatGPT. And so my content is very much informed by the world of work. For context, I spent the first 7 years as a lawyer and then 7 years working in government and most recently working for startups. And it was in my last role when I was working on AI enablement that I realized this was going to completely change the way we see work, the way we see life. And I was very worried that people were going to get left behind. And so I started a daily content challenge over a year today is day 233, I believe, with 247 videos made. So it's almost like an almost daily cranking out of content. I think with my audience, it's very much taking them from the tactical to the existential. So it's about building that relationship and basically holding their hand into the bigger issues and working through those together. In terms of PDOM, I'd say mine is probably at about 25 to 30%. In 2018, I wrote a dissertation about AI and the impact of that on Black women in the workplace. So I think that informs my thinking. But I firmly believe that there's a divide between the information that we have as the general public and what's been spoken behind closed doors. And I think if I had access to conversations behind closed doors, my PDOM would probably be around 45.
Okay, fair enough.
Oh, okay. I thought Liron was me. Okay, hi, I'm Matheus. I make short form and now long form videos about AI politics, economics, and risk under the handle Future Tense. Yeah, what I'm hoping to get out of this fellowship is probably, just being able to make my first few long form videos. It's been really great to meet people like yourself and get your advice and learnings on how you do everything. My PDOM would probably be like if we end up building super intelligence, like 80% or something like that. But probably lower considering that we could stop it.
All right.
Hi, I'm Vin Sixsmith. I've been making a lot of content since I was about 12 years old. So that's for the past 7 years. And I was very obsessed with making, growing loads of social media pages, which I was quite successful with multiple, getting 50,000 followers or more, and tens of millions of views. But more recently, pivoting into AI safety because I realized I wasn't really making much of an impact. And I think this was a very impactful area. And obviously, it's a very big risk going on. So now I'm busy with creating content in this space, and I'm very curious to learn what your experience has been in the last year and how you've been able to grow so quickly. I don't know. I don't have a PDOM, to be honest. I have not really considered it deeply enough to know.
All right. Well, you should get one today.
Hi, Liron. So I'm Gaëtan. I run this French YouTube channel called The Flares. I actually interviewed you last year.
Yeah, of course. Hey, I remember you.
Yeah. So I'm here to learn more about how to communicate about AI safety and to spread the message in French. I guess what I want to learn from you is how did you manage to grow the channel so quickly? Like, what was the key drivers? If you have any tips, if you plan to do different kind of content than long form podcast, maybe short form videos or video essays. And my PDOM, I guess it's between coin toss and the Russian roulette, something like that.
Nice.
Hello, I'm Inken. I am from Berlin, Germany. I have a background in research in human-machine interaction and communications on the side of language and how it shapes our culture, which has now drastically changed since ChatGPT entered the market and a wider population was able to talk to a machine in natural language. I also have a background in producing and acting, so creating content kind of combines scientific findings with being in front of the camera. I've been doing it for 5 years now. Just recently, like maybe 2 years, I pivoted into AI, and then recently, like 6, 7, 8 months ago, into AI safety. We had another mentor talking about the evolution of, first you like AI so much, and then at one point you're like, oh my God, it's going to end the world. And I think my tipping point was 7 months ago, and I was like, I need to do something about it. And I think the goal for my fellowship, or for being a fellow here, is to translate what's going on in San Francisco to Europe, starting with Germany, and then maybe I can broaden my
impact, with short form videos.
Nice. What's your PDoom?
Oh, I think 40.
Wow. All right.
Yep, I can go. Hi, Liron. My name is Mikey. I run a YouTube channel called Mikey Posada. It's my name. I make long-form video essays on YouTube. I think recently I've been transitioning away from where I started, which was kind of like philosophical psychology, advanced personal development, and I've really just been starting to talk about economics, politics, like the social issues, big social issues, and that's why I transitioned to AI, mainly because I see this radically transforming the world. I don't think I have enough of a technical expertise to have like a PDoom myself, which is why I kind of just refer to experts like Jeffrey Hinton and like those people. And that paper that I saw a while ago that surveyed like thousands of AI researchers, and I think the average was like 10 to 20% like extinction risk or like mass dystopia risk. So that's probably where I'm at, 10 to 20% chance. On Saturday, I stayed up super late watching your debate with Mike Hirschfeld, which was super awesome. And that was my introduction to your channel. And yeah, ultimately what I want to get out of the frame and what I want to get out of this conversation is just to get better. Like ultimately, I know if I'm not growing, there's probably a lot of room for growth, and I just want to learn the whole spiel of the YouTube game. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Hi, Liron. My name is Caitlin. I go by Future Briefing across all platforms. I come from a background in journalism. I've been working in global newsrooms for a while. And I, at the same time, have a partner who's an AI researcher and was seeing everything that was going on and felt like there was a big gap in the newsroom and in terms of what was being communicated. Spent a good year plus just really diving in, learning everything I can personally about AI safety, and found the most effective way to communicate this is on my own platform directly to an audience. So I try to, get people run up to speed on AI safety research. I put them with the tools to kind of like navigate this future that we're entering. I really admire your production, the people that you speak to. So I would love to pick your brain a bit on that. And my PDoom is between 10 and 30%, though I think shooting higher is better because when you shoot for the moon and you fall to the stars, then at least you're...
Cool. Ori, what is your PDoom?
Sure, yeah, I guess I can introduce myself.
Yeah.
I'm Ori. I've been working with Liron as a producer for about 6 months. And before that, I have a marketing background. I used to do PR, and then I did advertising. But for the last 2 years, since I've known that guy for a long time, and he's been talking about this for like a really long time, like almost 20 years, is when like you first told, like, I heard you talk about the risk of powerful AI. And so I was early to being aware of the AI risk. And when ChatGPT came out, I was primed for it by that point. And so I got into AI safety communications pretty soon after that. And so I worked with Control AI for a year and helped them with their communications. And then Liron and I partnered once the podcast started getting more traction. And my PDoom is, the way I think of it is it's really high. And I think it's really like, this is a possibility in my lifetime soon. And if you ask me to put a number, then I say something like 75%.
Wow, which is even higher than what I go around saying. It's always good when you're the optimist on the team.
And maybe, what is my PDoom? I'm surprised a lot of people's PDooms here are higher than what I would think. I'm still unclear, so maybe my PDoom is around 10, 20%. I'm open to being convinced though. But yeah, take it away, Liron.
All right, yeah, sounds good. So I'll give you my tips and tricks. I guess I should also add a disclaimer though. It's not like I'm already achieving my goal. My show is maybe about 1% of where it needs to be. But, these things tend to grow geometrically, right? They go exponentially. So being 1% might actually mean being halfway there. So maybe I'm halfway on the journey, but I'm definitely not all the way on the journey, because all the way on the journey means really influencing discourse at the highest levels. And you'll know that I'm influencing discourse at the highest levels when people can't just go on a podcast and spout their PR, like their own script of what they're trying to impose upon the world without getting challenged, right? Everybody will expect, oh, you got to challenge your view. And specifically, Doom Debates is the premier place to get your view challenged, to defend your view. When we get to that point, then you'll know, okay, Doom Debates is actually achieving its mission. So that's not the case today, but we're slowly, incrementally getting there. So just some stats about where we stand today. We have 150K YouTube subscribers. 80% are from the US and UK and Canada. 96% male, 4% female. I'm not super happy about that one, 96% male, but it is what it is. I guess that's always been the case. If you go to like Less Wrong, if you go to the Rationalist and the AI Doom communities, it did start out very, very male, and it's only slowly trickling out into different demographics. But yeah, so hopefully we can move that. But yeah, so we post about one video per week, sometimes two. We get about 2,000 watch hours per video, hopefully growing. I've got 1,000 Substack subscribers so far, and we get a few hundred listens per episode through the Substack hosted podcast. The audience is passionate and engaged, though, so that's definitely significant. They're not just like random people who don't know what they're clicking on. They're very much invested in the show, as they should be. It's a very high stakes thing to be invested in. And we've had 25 generous viewers donate, so it's disproportionately high engagement in terms of the donations that are coming in. So that's just a sign that, we've got, you might call it like a small burning but very bright hot fire, initial fire for the show. And this is since we started asking for donations 6 months ago. Doom Debates has a mission. So we're not just creating content. We have a mission to raise awareness about AIX risk, existential risk. And the second part of the mission is to raise the level of discourse on this high stakes topic. It's a twofold mission. The X risk part is obviously very important because we might all literally die soon. But the other thing is like, hey, society's just missing a good forum. Like, people will just spout their own perspectives and they don't get challenged, and we're content to leave it on that. Like, we've kind of forgotten how to debate. Now, why did I personally start this show? I think that I can help people make sense of this insanely new, insanely complex, high stakes topic. I think I'm personally a good fit for it. Number one, I like having an audience, so I like doing it. I don't feel like this is work when I do Doom Debates. I'm having a good time. I like the attention. And I realize that I have the stamina to focus on this, because I feel like that's really the number one thing when you're creating content. It's so easy to be like, this isn't rewarding enough, so I'm running out of steam. I actually think that all of you at this talk have shown that you have stamina, right? That's why you already see yourselves as content creators. So maybe you have that box checked. You already know yourself. You already know your ability to create content. But prior to this, I wasn't exactly a content creator. I was mostly just a guy on Twitter. So I was a content creator for a few years on Twitter. And then before that, I wasn't even that. So this is kind of my ultimate content creation attempt right now. I don't have like prior art besides a bunch of tweets. But before I started Doom Debates, I did see some signs that maybe this was the track for me, that I was kind of groping my way toward doing a show like this, because I did an X Spaces on, Twitter Spaces, with a bunch of people who call themselves accelerationists, and I debated them live on Twitter Spaces. And I debated this guy named George Hotz, who has a really good reputation in the tech industry for being like a top hacker. He made like a self-driving car company, self-driving car software. He's done a bunch of interesting things. And I got some encouragement and some early fans. Some people even said that my debate with George Hotz was better than Eliezer Yudkowsky's debate. So I kind of one-upped Eliezer, because Eliezer Yudkowsky debated George Hotz, and then a bunch of people were like, I don't know if Eliezer made his case well. I feel like George Hotz won. And then I debated George Hotz a couple weeks later, and people were like, I think Liron won that one. I'm like, what? I debated him better than Eliezer? Okay, maybe this has potential. I also invited a couple people randomly. I started arguing on Twitter about my perspective versus all of these AI non-doomers. And I would invite people, just come on YouTube with me, just record a video for my personal channel so that people can see my perspective versus your perspective. So like I said, I was groping my way to this idea of a debate show. And then I also made a few viral tweets. And the viral tweets would just be like, hey, look at this dangerous sign. Like, news would come out. I'd be like, hey, this might mean we're doomed, guys. So I had these tweets go viral. For example, I'd be like, hey, this guy's name is Paul Cristiano. He used to lead safety for OpenAI, and he's saying that his PDoom is 50%. So the guy who's making all this cool new technology says that we might be doomed. Check this out, right? And these tweets would go viral because more so a couple years ago when ChatGPT was new and people were like just looking for the first time and they were more suggestible, they were more open-minded. Whereas now people have kind of settled into their positions where if they're already on Twitter, they kind of know, they're like, no, I've decided we're not doomed. It's all good. So you can't get me with a viral tweet like this. So the scene has changed a little bit. Another thing in my days prior to Doom debates, I joined Pause AI and I was talking into a megaphone. I was going to protests and I was saying things like, "Hey, pause AI because we don't want to die." So I was leading the chants in these protests. And then I also got invited to Jubilee and Dr. Phil. So I was just this random guy. I didn't even have a title. Entrepreneur basically is my title, like software founder, I guess, of small startups. But then I would get invited to Dr. Phil and Jubilee, and I would just kind of represent the doomer position in these mainstream channels, like, a couple times a year. And I got enough views and compliments from my small initial audience when I would do these little things. I started picking up like a very tiny number of fans, be like, do more stuff, Liron. And I'm like, okay. So finally I'm like, all right, screw it. I'm gonna do my own show. Oh, and the last straw was I'd constantly be listening to podcasts and other shows. And I would constantly be frustrated. I'd be hate listening because other prominent people would go on these shows and they would be super wrong and dickish. Like they'd be doing low blows, right? Think about like the Mark Andreessens of the world. They go on a podcast and be like, of course we're not doomed. Like it's just math. It's all good. So they'd be making these weak arguments and then the host would just nod along and the host would be like, yeah, that's stupid. And I wouldn't really have the platform where I could respond. So I'm like, okay, screw it. I'm just going to make my own show. You could call the show Someone is Wrong on the Internet, the podcast. Because now I have a way to hit back when I see people making ridiculous claims. And then now some people will actually watch my reaction episodes. So it's more of a fair fight. The doomers are getting a voice. That's what I feel like with this show. And I also think that the passionate audience feels the same way. They're like, finally, this doesn't have to live rent-free in my mind when I see somebody make like a terrible argument on a different podcast. It doesn't live rent-free in my mind because I know Liron from Doom Debates has it handled. We're going to mount a response to this. It's all good. Okay, so now I'll tell you guys how the show evolved. So when I originally started the show, I thought that I would just debate a bunch of random people, and it would just be like a YouTube version of my Twitter slap fights, like random people getting into my DMs. I'd be like, yeah, let's just do this every week. But then I started getting bigger ambitions. Like I debated Robin Hanson and some these kind of notable people like Professor Lee Cronin, Dr. Keith Duggar from Machine Learning Street Talk. He's the co-host of this really popular AI podcast. And I'm like, okay, I feel like these people are not really better debaters than me. Like I just started the show to be like, I'm just this random guy. I have no credentials, but I guess I'm raising my own relative opinion. Like I don't really see other people debating AI Doom better than I am. So if that's the case, I guess I should just go for the top. Like, I guess I should just set my sights. Like, I don't even think the most powerful, smartest people in the world are mounting higher quality debates than I am personally. And I don't even think I'm that great. But it's just, I guess, what they say about, when you have a skill, when it just feels to you, like, why is everybody else being like so hopelessly bad at this? I guess that's what I feel like about debating, right? Like, I don't feel like I'm a debate genius. I just feel like other people are inexplicably bad. Yeah. So, but now it's explicitly the show's mission to elevate the discourse. I think it took me a little while to slip into that mission where now it's like, okay, nobody's going to do this better than me personally, apparently. So now I want to hit the top leaders and thinkers. I want to get to Sam Altman, Mark Andreessen, David Sachs, Steven Pinker, Eliezer Yudkowsky. Oh, wait, I did get Eliezer Yudkowsky to come on my channel. So check on that one because I've also known him personally for like 20 years. But yeah, all these other people I don't have on the show yet. And now it's explicitly my ambition to create a powerful enough forum where they feel, maybe not exactly obligated, but they actually feel an incentive to come on the show. So like I said, you're going to know Doom Debates is succeeding where it's no longer convenient to just totally ignore the Doomers or totally ignore an invitation to come debate on a forum like this, because that's their MO today, right? I've tweeted at Sam Altman, I've tweeted at Dario Amodei, like, all right, guys, come into the forum, come say your piece. And of course, total radio silence, right? They're not going to touch it. It's up to us to make them have to touch it before it's too late, to hold them accountable. And yeah, debate itself, our society is somehow missing the valuable institution of debate. It's pretty crazy. When you think about an enlightened society, you think about the Colosseum or like this big forum where the top minds debate. We have a few forums like that here and there. I think like Soho House does debates, like Oxford Union, Student Union will do some debates. There's Monk debates. There's presidential debates. Occasionally there's like local debates for city council. But that's really slim pickings in terms of like our society's capacity to debate. That's not much. So Doom debates, I just realized, hey, this particular issue of AI Doom, where there's so many different perspectives, there's so many different arguments, and there's so many top minds disagreeing, and we have like potentially years to live, like we better get this figured out. So I just realized our society is just lacking this key piece. And so without Doom debates existing, we're actually in an unsatisfactory situation. Like this show can't not exist because then our society will be pathetic. Like that's my perspective on why the second mission of the show is to basically encourage sense making by having a debate forum. Okay, the next thing I realized was that I think sorry, does somebody have a question? I can't tell.
I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
Over here. How do you handle, probably you get a lot of hate, I'm assuming, like a lot of people disagreeing with you. Like how do you handle that and not be bothered by that? Because like it's something I've had to navigate where a lot of my content tried to stay neutral and say like, you know, show both sides so that I didn't give my opinion on it, but it doesn't really engage as well. So yeah, I would like to know how you don't care.
Got it. So I'm somebody who would care less than average on that, just because my personality type is like Asperger's, basically, like self-diagnosed. So like I don't care that much about other people's opinions. I guess that could be a strength and a weakness. But that said, I don't actually get that much hate. Like, sure, in every video, a couple commenters will be like, this is so dumb. Like, look at yourself talking. So sure, there's a couple of those, but then there's like 50 others that are like nice. I think the woman factor in your case is going to be a big deal. Right? I just feel like people just love to, rile up women on the internet, right? Like it's sad, but it is what it is.
My last video was 100% men. 100. 10.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like definitely been very hard for me on that. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the only advice that I would have, like I said, as somebody who doesn't experience that much hate yet, my only advice that I would have is just like, if you're confident in your mission, right? You're confident that you're doing the right thing and you've got some segment of the audience that's along on the mission with you, then just focus on that, right? That's all I can say.
Thank you.
Sure thing. Okay, so another thing I realized about Doom debates is I think we can combine a unique combination of factors. Scott Adams, the late Scott Adams, rest in peace, was saying, you have to have a talent stack, right? Like a combination of things that make you unique. So I'm not the smartest AI safety guy out there, right? I'm not the most well-read. There's no one dimension that I'll be number one on, but I do think I bring a unique combination of things to the table. So I do have a decent background here. I majored in computer science. I've spent thousands of hours studying Eliezer Yudkowsky's posts. I do think I'm going to be at the top of the leaderboard, close to the top of the leaderboard for just how much Eliezer Yudkowsky I've read. And for those of you who don't know, Eliezer Yudkowsky really is like the pioneer in the last 20 years of this whole idea of why we're so doomed, like what the problem is with super intelligent AI. He pointed it out before the AI was even here. He launched the research field before we even had the AI. And now we have the AI and it's almost the deadline and we still don't have the research hasn't come far along, unfortunately. But yeah, so I've studied thousands of hours of Eliezer Yudkowsky. And I also have a passion for the art of rationality, including rational debate. So I think I have something to contribute in order, just demonstrating to people what a good debate looks like. A good debate can look intense and high stakes, but still not be a dick, right? So that's really the art form, is like you're passionate and you're not being a dick. So I don't think that's that hard to do. It comes naturally to me, but I think that I can bring something to the table just in terms of high quality debate. And then just in terms of my talent stack, I can do clear explanations of technical concepts. I think I'm above average on that front. I have a mainstream accessible talking style. So most of the people who have read this much Eliezer Yudkowsky, you try to talk to them, you're going to get like a monotone, like big words, stuttering, like, not to throw shade, but like there is a correlation between like being well versed in these concepts and being like a painfully bad communicator. And also I have a direct confrontational but friendly debate style. So I mentioned like high functioning Asperger's. So like I don't mind like confronting people in a way that might make them feel uncomfortable, but like the good kind of uncomfortable, right? Like you're grappling with this concept, even though I'm being friendly, like I'm still making you grapple. Okay. And then I bring substance density to the table. That's just like my style. I think that makes it unique because some shows have a lot of boring parts. And then I'm prioritizing entertainment and showmanship, right? So like I've got like a freaking fire behind me here. It's like, so I'm pulling out, all the stops with the studio, and I've got like I've got this Doom Dog figurine on the side here. He's like pulling the lever, and like, the show's theme is like this dog who represents me. And it's kind of a play on the dog that says like, this is fine, but it's a different dog, no IP infringement. Yeah, so yeah, I'm bringing showmanship to the table here, and sometimes I've had segments like Logic Cop, and I'll like dress up as a cop when I'm like finding a flaw in somebody's logic. I think the entertainment dimension often gets lost, and like when I ask people what's your P-Doom on the show, there's a whole P-Doom theme song where like robots come in and they sing "What's Your P-Doom" because it's a recurring segment. And also, what's your P-Doom? There's been a lot of controversy over that phrase because some people think that it's like it cheapens the idea of doom to ask what's your P-Doom, and some people use it to make fun of doomers. But in my case, I'm like, let's make that the slogan of the show. What's your P-Doom? Doom debates. So this is what I mean by like high production or entertainment showmanship. And yeah, we're bringing high production values to the table, most notably the studio, but we'd edit like 12 hours in a typical episode. That's how much we spend editing. And then finally, the other thing that we're bringing to the table as a unique show is it's really the only AI analysis show that explicitly communicates that P-Doom is high. Like, talk about an oversight. Like, we're living in this world where we might literally all get killed in like a few years. Like, our children might not even grow up. Like the stakes are ridiculously high. And you're not going to find another show that's mainstream accessible that's like, oh yeah, by the way, we're almost all doomed. Like, don't forget. It's crazy. And there's really just one other show that does it, which is John Sherman's channel, the For Humanity podcasts and Warning Shots. He's got a few shows that he runs, and he's very clear that P-Doom is high, but nobody else will say it. It's crazy. All right, so that is my talent stack. And I do think, if you're bringing something to the table, if you're bringing a new show, you probably want to think about what are the combination of factors that are going to give you an edge. Okay, the next part is what makes this show must watch. I think this is an important concept. Like, if you're wondering why people aren't watching your show, you can ask yourself the question of like, well, why do they have to watch it, right? What need do they have that they really need to watch the show? Otherwise, they're not going to get their need met. So one thing I can say about Doom Debates is it's the best way to understand what the guest's position is. So like I recently had Noah Smith on the show, or Dean Ball, he was the guy who wrote the White House's AI policy. He was on the show. If you really want to understand Dean Ball's position, you're just not going to get a better place to understand it than Doom Debates. So in terms of pure information about what the guest really thinks, nowhere else, like sure, they can write their own position, they can go on a friendly podcast, but unless their argument is actually getting challenged and probed, you're just not going to understand their position that well. So I can offer that service of probing people's positions. Okay, another reason it's must watch is just because it's the most, arguably the most insightful and entertaining analysis of the AI doom situation. So if you want to know the big picture and the latest developments of why you're doomed by somebody who actually has the perspective that we're doomed, this is definitely one of your best options to come for that reason. Another reason it's a must watch is if you come to like my style as the host and you enjoy slipping back into my perspective. Another reason is you believe in the mission and you like watching and supporting somebody who's pursuing this mission on your behalf, right? The mission to raise awareness of X risk and hold people accountable to defend their views and raise the quality of debate. There's a lot of viewers who are like, yeah, this is a great mission, Liron. I want to support the mission. And by watching the show, you're part of this mission. And without the show, it's like nobody's doing your mission. So it makes it a must watch. And related to this concept of why the show is a must watch for the viewer, there's this concept of the world needs this. Like the world would be unsatisfactory if your show didn't exist. I actually have had experience starting something where I didn't check that box. So like I run this startup called Relationship Hero where we do relationship coaching. It's kind of like couples therapy, but we do it like individually and we can give you like dating advice, relationship advice. So I run this other company and I think, we create value. Don't get me wrong. People come and use the service and we have great reviews and they like it. But if my company shut down, would the world be unsatisfactory? Barely, right? Because people will just be like, okay, well, I guess I'll just like get a therapist. Like that'll be a kind of similar experience to a coach, like whatever, close enough. So I wouldn't say that the world without my company is unsatisfactory. But in the case of Doom Debates, I've already described how if Doom Debates disappeared, what do you have to do? Go back to hate listening to these podcasts. Like these people can't keep getting away with these terrible opinions on these other shows. There has to be a good show. So that's what I mean by the world needs this. I don't think anybody right now would be filling the Doom Debates gap. John Sherman would a little bit, but he's not really the debater type. So he's still like letting people get away with these bad opinions. There's zero accountability without Doom Debates. And there's this important doomer perspective. Like in mainstream discourse, who's going to represent the doomer perspective? I mean, you've got, the Machine Intelligence Research Institute, Eliezer Yudkowsky's organization. Yeah, they're representing it, but they're not doing it on a weekly basis with that showmanship and that communication style to it. And so the doomer perspective is getting marginalized. So I feel strongly right now that this show needs to exist. And I think a lot of the viewers agree. Yeah, I'll take a question.
I feel like a lot of us are kind of making similar content to an extent, and I get that. I feel like the point you're making is obviously how is your content unique compared to other people's content, but most of the time I do feel like a lot of it comes down to the same thing. So are you suggesting you really get a clear niche where there's nobody else who they could potentially watch instead, or don't really fully understand if that's how
Yeah, it's a great question because I do agree. I mean, I've looked at your guys' channels and I do agree there is a risk that your channels are like kind of similar to other channels to some degree, right? So like, I think this will be like a very deep question for many of you of like, why is the show a must watch? Why is the world unsatisfactory without your show? Maybe the way to get to the answer is to narrow down your niche and be like, hey, out of all the things that I've done, what are the things that I've done that are like quite irreplaceable? Or rather, even if they're not irreplaceable, it's the things where like, if I were to delete these particular episodes that I've done or these particular posts, then there really would be a gap. Like somebody else needs to come and make those particular posts and then be like, is there like a line connecting those types of posts? And maybe I should focus on that.
Okay, cool.
By the way, I think now would be a good time to do some Q&As, Liron, if that's okay.
Yeah, totally.
Or if you want to
I prepared a lot more than 15 minutes worth of content. And so, maybe I'll give you some headlines of stuff I could unpack if you guys want, and then I'll just toss it to you guys and you can ask me about anything.
That'd be great.
Nice. All right. So we talked about what makes the show must watch. Let's see. The kind of host I am. I see myself as similar to Bill Maher. Another quick bullet point here is how the show increased its production values and its investment over time. Another topic is how we fund the show's production. Another topic is our social media strategy. Another topic is my view on AI X risk, which we've already talked about a little bit. And then the conclusion is just I would like to see other people in AI media be explicit that P-Doom is insanely high and fill in what I call the missing mood of basically yelling and screaming that we are pretty doomed. So those are basically the topics I think we haven't touched on yet.
Any questions?
I would be interested in learning more about how you are funded or how you manage to pay for all of it.
Yep. Yeah, I figured you guys might be interested in that. All right. So for the first year, it was just me working for free. Very simple. And, I'm fortunate. It's obviously a fortunate position where I have my startup. It's paying the bills. I have some savings. So it was just a passion project. And I had enough time, right? Like maybe some of you don't have that luxury and then I don't have any advice for you, right? Like you'll have to figure that out. After the first year, a really generous viewer did something that I'm guessing it's super rare. I don't expect you guys to have this advantage, but somebody threw in 1 Bitcoin. And when I got that, I was like, okay, let's get serious about production. If we have a viewer who's going to invest this much in the show, I got to invest in myself. So I immediately hired a full-time producer, Ori, and I contracted a bunch of professionals to build me a studio, which you see that come to fruition. And we've even hired an intern or two, and we're hiring more actually. We turned on YouTube ads, meaning like we show ads, and that brings in $400 a month. So $400 a month is not really enough to fund production. We really need like 25x more views to fund production based on the YouTube ads, a few doublings. So right now, the only way that I think is sustainable to fund the show is a donation model. But we're just fortunate enough that we have a handful of super passionate viewers who are at the intersection of caring a lot about the cause and high disposable income or high assets, right? Like for crypto millionaires in the case of this person who donated 1 Bitcoin, early to crypto person. A couple of those people have donated. And so I'm not sure if that's true for all of your shows. I'm not sure if you happen to have people at the intersection of feeling really passionate about your mission and being really high disposable income. A lot of you might think, I should start a Substack or a Patreon, right? I should get memberships. But me and Ori realized that, a $10 a month Substack subscription, it's just not going to move the needle, right? Our budget is, we need thousands of dollars per month, right? Like the studio costs many thousands of dollars. Like we're not going to get there with a few thousand people where 1% of them pay $10 a month. We're just not going to get there. In our case, we just had to ask for big donations, and it happened to be sufficiently feasible that we think that's kind of the winning model for us. We had this concept of becoming a mission partner. It's if you go to doomdebates.com/donate, and we're very explicit. We're like, listen, if you want to be a mission partner, if you want me to consider you a partner on this mission, You can't just kick in $10 a month. Like, that's nice. That helps our Substack ranking when you become a paid subscriber. And I'll even send you a free t-shirt. But if you actually want to meaningfully help the show, the minimum is $1,000. You know, you got to step it up with $1,000, just because even then, you know, we have multiple thousand just to fund the next month of production. And so we've been very explicit about that. And I do think that that's kind of rare. It's rare to see a show where they're treating their viewers like they're throwing around thousands of dollars right there, right? Like, but we just thought, I just thought that, you know, I was specifically speaking to the people where they can spend at that level. And I believe that a few of those people existed in my audience. And I think that's turned out to be correct.
I have a follow-up question on the funding point, because I had answered it a little bit in terms of your relationship with the people who are donating to you. But I'm curious about looking forward. Aside from donations, are you thinking about other potential funding models that you would be comfortable sharing?
Yeah, good question. So for one thing, when the audience grows, right, that naturally presents a funding model. So everybody who has an audience that's 25 or 50 times bigger than my audience should be good to go on funding, just in terms of, you know, ad revenue, ads in the show, right? Those are kind of like standard funding options. So maybe the real question you guys are asking is, hey, if I only have a couple thousand, or if I only have, let's say, less than 10,000 viewer hours per month, or maybe I have 50,000, but they're like, they're low quality viewer hours or whatever, right? Like, I don't have an audience that I can just go slap on some ads and make money. How do I bridge the gap, right? Because we're all just talking about bridging the gap. We all agree that once we have big audiences, then there's plenty of funding sources, correct?
Depends what platform you're on.
Okay, fair enough. Well, okay, so let's put it like this. Everybody has some kind of gap. So maybe if you're on, let's say, Instagram, maybe you need like many millions. And if you're on YouTube, you're good with like 500,000. Like, it depends, right? But we're all bridging some kind of gap. And so like I said, my answer was like large viewer donations. Another answer of how to bridge the gap is, because you guys are all working for a good cause, you know, raising AI safety awareness, then there actually are funds, right? There's donation funds. I've actually applied to a couple myself. None of them have actually hit yet. Or sorry, one of them has hit, which is Manifold. You guys should all check out or Manifund, right? If you haven't tried Manifund already, you should list your project there, and that's a donation page that you can link to. And they have various fundraising drives, so I've raised a few thousand that way. But most of my donation has come in when I just promote to viewers on my own channel, and then I link to doomdebates.com/donate, which links to Manifund. So most of the money on Manifund I just raised through kind of my own donation drive. But if you list yourself on Manifund, that's one way to get donations, which has worked for me from the users of Manifund. And then there's other initiatives, like there's the Survival and Flourishing Fund. If you go to AIsafety.com, there's a list of funders, and you should just go down the list and try all of them. I'm about to try Survival and Flourishing Fund. I've tried the video program, the media program at Future of Life Institute. Shout out to Max Tegmark and Jan Tallinn, two founders who I actually know personally. So I felt like my odds would be pretty good because I'm pretty connected to those guys, and they expressed some interest, but so far they haven't come through with a donation. But it's definitely, you know, if you guys need to bridge the gap and you're not getting viewer donations, you can definitely just keep trying to raise your viewer count and keep applying to all these different grants. And if they don't grant you, you just hit them up and you're like, okay, what do I need to do? Like, just tell me what's worth a grant to you. I would definitely pursue that angle.
I had another question, if no one else has a question, and it's about your strategy around audiences. So you mentioned at the start that the split in your audience, I believe, was 96% male, probably 4% female. So I'm curious to hear if that's something that you're seeking to shift. What's your strategy around that? How are you thinking about that specific issue?
Good question. So I don't even know if anything I'm doing is specifically designed to shift that strategy. I do think that it'll naturally shift as we get more prominent, because let's say Jan LeCun was coming on the program. I think a few more female viewers would get roped in, because as you converge toward just having a popular show, you just get popular people, and being popular implies dragging along some women too. So I guess that would be my number one strategy. But some people have asked me like, hey, why don't you bring on more female guests? And like, that is pretty valid, but it's also, you know, you get this problem where like the guests, like the few female guests that there are, they also get like more requests. So it's tough. I mean, I'm open to ideas.
I do think female guests would help. When you were running through the list before, I was trying to think if any of them were women. And if there were, I didn't recognize them. No, I'm just kidding. No, but actually, interview like you should.
Yeah. Okay, for sure, yeah. So definitely, if anybody has connections to women who'd be interesting on Doom Debates, let me know. Yeah, we have had a couple with the show, so it's non-zero, but yeah, it's could use more for sure.
The question, what's your like basically what do you expect the audience to do in terms of having an impact in the with lowering the bill basically on do you sometimes are you trying to ask them to write to their elected officials, or do you send them to a specific page where they can learn more?
Also a great question. Yeah, I see my show as like the top of the funnel, right? Where people discover the show and they stay engaged and then they look to go to the next step. I could probably do a better job of giving like specific steps, but it's honestly hard just because it's like, what are the actual steps? Yeah, you can write to your congressperson here and there. You can join a protest. Occasionally they happen. I think raising awareness itself, it's one of those few times where just raising awareness actually is surprisingly helpful. It's like, talk to people in your life about it and then make it a voting issue. But yeah, I mean, it's a good question. Like the reason why I don't spend that much time on the show being like, oh, you have to do this specific action is because I don't know which one specific action is like disproportionately impactful. I actually think if people would just share the show, that's one of the most efficient ways to spread the word, is to be like, oh yeah, this is like a popular show in the space. Once this is a popular show in the space, then it's easy for people with power to make laws and to decide policy. They're like, oh, okay, this show represents the people. Okay, great. Let's make policy accordingly. Because ultimately, policy is the biggest lever we have. The Pause AI movement is saying, hey, we need a treaty to pause AI. Nothing else can be done at this point. Like, we're actually in a very late stage in the game to try to survive AI.
I was wondering how we can communicate that people are listening, right? So because if you're confronting a person with who are going to die within 2 years, or everybody's going to die, they surely they're just scroll or they're really mad and say you're wrong. So how are you shaping, or maybe I know how you do it because you're doing it with debate, but not all of us are debating. Is there a particular thing we can do to craft this message in a way that people are listening?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the question we're all grappling with, right? I mean, yeah, I think you will be able to answer it just as well as I could. I mean, I'm taking a particular angle where I think my own comparative advantage is to interact with people who are spouting their own points, right? Is to engage and confront people who are shaping the discourse, try to bring them on the show. You guys, I've seen you have very different approaches, which I think are valid and useful, right? I mean, a lot of you are covering, you're giving people analysis, you're making it understandable to them. I think you got to know your audience, right? And your audience is going to be very different. In some cases, your audience is inherently more broad than my audience, because there is something about my show which makes it a little bit niche and not super mainstream, which is I do like to get into some technical details. So yeah, it's different.
I'm curious to hear about how you approach an episode where you, broadly speaking, agree with your guest, even though you're in a debate context. So, for example, your conversation with Eliezer Yudowsky, I watched a little bit of it, but like you said, you're like top 5% of people who've really studied his work and agree with him. And so how do you approach a conversation like that within the debate framework?
Yeah, so a lot of the people I bring on the show, it's pretty explicit. Like, yeah, this conversation is going to be 80% interview, 20% debate. Like, maybe a few disagreements will come up here and there, but we're pretty much just walking through points that I think are interesting, and I'm just helping them make their point. But that's a larger thing about this show, which is every single guest is actually landing somewhere on this continuous spectrum, continuum between debate and interview. And sometimes you can't really tell, because part of a good debate is you really have to probe somebody's position, and probing somebody's position is a good interview. So people would sometimes give me compliments in the comments and be like, wow, you're such a good interviewer. And I'm like, really? I am? I'm not a good interviewer, but I guess just setting them up in order to be able to properly debate them turns out to be a good interview.
Yes, a related question is, how much time do you spend preparing for the interview? Do you study the guest? Do you look at their past writing or podcast interview? And another question that's linked to the production process. How much do you think having a teaser at the beginning of each podcast works for you? Because I don't do it on my podcast, maybe I should. So I'm wondering if...
Yeah, sure. Okay, on the preparation side, It definitely varies by episode. So, for example, I recently recorded an episode with Destiny, and that was pretty low preparation for me just because the premise of the episode was I'm going to walk Destiny through the AI Doom argument. And so the biggest piece of my preparation doc was like, okay, here's the AI Doom argument that I walk everybody through, and then we'll see where he disagrees, where he gets off the Doom train, is what I call it. But then an example of an episode where I did high preparation was a recent episode with Noah Smith. Noah Smith has written a bunch of blog posts about his different views about AI, and it's actually thousands of words. So I had to load those all in my podcast player. That's how I catch up on things. I listen to like hours of podcast. A lot of times I'll listen to like 8 hours of podcasts, even more, to prepare for an episode in like the week before the episode. And then I'll prepare a big outline doc. So I'm like constantly taking notes, making this outline. And then when the show happens, when I've done the best job of preparation, I'm constantly bringing up like quotes like, you've said this, what were you thinking here? And I can ask like these nuanced questions about exact stuff that they've done. And yeah, like half my episodes are like that. And then half of them are lower prep. And then to your question of, I think you're saying like the highlights reel right at the beginning of the episode, should you do that? I think the obvious answer that's considered like a best practice is like, yeah, you really do want to invest. Let's say you spent 5 hours making an episode. You really want to spend like one whole hour, like, 10 or 20% of the effort at least, just making like the first 30 seconds or the first minute. Because if you look at the graph of when people drop off, it's like crazy. It's like half the people drop off in the first minute, right? Something like that, even more than half. So, if you don't invest in the first minute, you haven't invested in half your audience, right? So I recommend, me and Ori will spend like a couple hours on the first minute.
Yeah, we'll take about 1 or 2 more questions.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll take a couple more and then we'll wrap it up. Yeah.
That you had more to talk about your social media strategy. So I'm curious to hear what things you were just.
All right, social media strategy. So it definitely varies by show. In our case, for now, we haven't unlocked all the, I don't even know what the best social media strategy, but one thing we've noticed is that Twitter is really where it's at for us, X, because it's where our guests are, right? All the prominent intellectuals that we're trying to spar with, they're all on Twitter, and our most influential audience members are on Twitter, right? So like once in a while, I'll get a like from like a Vitalik Buterin or like a CEO of like a major tech company. I'll be like, oh wow, okay, that's cool that Doom Debates is like part of the discourse in that sense. And also, the thing about Twitter is we often see these organic proto-debates that are happening among other people. And that's what makes me feel like, okay, well, I'm glad I'm doing a show in this niche. This is clearly like a vibrant niche because I'm seeing 2 people spar informally on Twitter. So I'll just like bust into their thread. I'll be a reply guy. Actually, I'll quote tweet them. And I'll be like, okay, you guys are invited on to Doom Debates. Like, you're clearly sparring right here. So if you're going to spar, why don't you do this right? Don't tweet back 140 characters back and forth. And we've taken it up a notch. Ori and I were making these cool cards that look like trading cards. And they say like they have a person's photo on it and the giant word like invited. And then it encourages like 100 people to like the tweet. And then it's like, okay, you've been invited. And again, the ultimate strategy of all this is that you can't just ignore this, right? It can't be convenient to just ignore us asking out people to participate in this forum. That's where we're going this. Now, the success rate is only about 10%, but it's climbing. We're getting more and more people being, all right, fine, I'll go on Doom Debates. But it just goes to show why the world without Doom Debates is unsatisfactory.
All right. I think we're going to end it right here. Thank you so much, Liron. It was so helpful and such an insightful session. I'd love to know if you have any closing remarks for us. And yeah, hopefully we can see you at, we're having like the end of program showcase in March. So we'll talk more about that over email. But yeah, any closing remarks?
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks so much, Akshay. Glad you're running this program because I definitely would love to see more people in AI media. So my closing remarks are be explicit that PDoom is insanely high. We really, society really depends on people like you to lead the way, move the Overton window, make it okay to acknowledge the truth that we're doomed. It's literally like you can't even say it. It's like a thing you're not allowed to say. So I encourage you to say it. Have a sense of perspective about it, lead other people to it. And then I also wanted to say, Ori and I are actually hiring for interns. So we have this position. It's $25 an hour. You can work remotely a few hours a week. You can help us edit the show. We have a bunch of other tasks. And if you're interested in that, you can talk to Ori or just go to doomdebates.com/internship. We've got a bunch of different details and how you can apply. And yeah, my last takeaway is when you're working on your own shows, think about it in that perspective of why does this need to exist and why is it a must watch for your audience, and make it happen. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thanks a lot, Liron. Great session. And yeah, we'll talk soon. Thank you so much.
All right. See you, Akshay.